Okay, so we first see some foreshadowing images of us falling to the ground, a claw with a red background, lights flashing, and hands being let go. This is followed by Olivia waking up, seemingly unaware of her surroundings or what may have brought her there. She is wearing a dress with gray, white, black, and red, which are all central colors to Olivia's being, and the symbolism in the Egoist music video. She is also sitting atop a pure, white, soft bed with white feathers among an oily, dark, and dingy bottom level. Actually, the site of the music video was an incineration plant, as stated in Loona TV number 327. This is most interesting to note, as we see a lot of fire symbolism in Egoist as well. But let's discuss the feathers. Not only are feathers associated with pillows and beds, but there's one Loona girl in particular with white feathers who makes an appearance. The feathers again just allude to the fact that it is, in fact, Eve in this music video that we see later on. As Olivia sings, they say time moves, she looks up into the light, and it turns red. This again foreshadows what we are about to see unfold in Egoist. After that, though, we see Eve looking down on Olivia. This 2-second scene holds great meaning, but we won't be able to explain it until further on. It is also fact that Eve is the girl who looks down on Olivia, as she is seen in Loona TV number 327 having to get ready. Also, it's clearly her face. Olivia then finally says, "All of the petals of the flowers that bloomed in my heart fall." Sound familiar? It totally should. Hassel said in Let Me In, "The wind blows deep in my heart, picking at the flower petals." Go One even said in One and Only, "Oh, I know now why the waving flowers bloom." As we established, a flower blooming represents burgeoning, rebirth, and growth. Spring is the beginning season in the timeline of life, indicating youth, color, and, again, rebirth, as the flowers bloom and come alive after the harshness of winter every spring. So all of the flower petals inside Olivia's heart falling off indicate that something inside her is dying, as petals only fall when the flower itself dies. What could have invoked this change? These lyrics again foreshadow Olivia's transformation that we are about to see unfold. Okay, let's first discuss the flashing images. They move rather quickly, so I'll show you some screenshots. The first thing we see is a cassette illuminated red, then Jinsul eating cherries, the claw, a bulldozer, Jinsul with the sign behind her, and the bed on fire. The cassette, as we know, was present with Vivi, Kim Lip, and then Eve. We know that Vivi used it to begin her dream, as when she pressed play, her dream with the boy began. Kim Lip used it to continually loop, but, as we saw in Girlfriend and Lunatic, Eve stole the cassette player and taunted the girls. Eve used this to listen to Vivi's tape, which showed us the reality of what had happened to Vivi. So, we can only assume that this cassette is Vivi's, as it is connected to Eve, and Eve is present in Egoist. Jinsul eating cherries is something we see later on in the video, so we will discuss it then. The claw, as we know, is what Eve used in the claw machine to pick up the members she wanted to tempt and inspire Sinin. We will see this later on as well. The bulldozer is just a part of the set, so it's not too important. We see Jinsul's silhouette in front of a sign that says Fallen Angel in Chinese characters, illuminated blue. This will appear again as well. And then, finally, the bed set on fire. The bed is, like the other symbols we just looked at, a recurring motif in Egoist. The bed is a place of rest, where peace of mind can be achieved. It is also the place where married couples lie and are expected to be committed to each other. In one and only, we related marriage to the union between oneself and their self-image. We will apply that similar notion in Egoist, but not until a bit further on. The next most significant thing is that Olivia sings the lyrics, "From now on, I'll love myself instead of you, I'll live on." As she sings "I'll live on," she looks down on where she used to be. If you haven't noticed, Olivia keeps ascending the stairs in pursuit of higher ground. As we know, higher ground is holier ground, more regal and sought after. Why is she looking for this? Anyways, when she says that she will live on, that she will love herself instead of you. Who is this you? Well, to be frank, it is the old Olivia. See, when she ascends the stairs in pursuit of higher ground, she is looking for holiness, or greater purpose. After presumably being dropped by Eve, the one girl who was supposed to inspire rejection of Eden and the desire to love oneself, things went awry. The only one who can inspire self-love and change is, actually, oneself. In order to change, you need to purge your old image and being. This is exactly what Eve did to Olivia. That is why Olivia says she will live on. Within the new Olivia is a confidence that drives self-thought and love. This is who is killed in this video. Olivia's old self. We also then see the crane descending again, which alludes to Eve picking Olivia out as a girl she needs to tempt. Next, Olivia is dancing in what appears to be a parking garage, in black and white, wearing an all-white outfit that resembles Eve's. I want to point out that the scene is deliberately in black and white, as it mirrors that of Cherry's scenes in Sweet Crazy Love. This again links Olivia to Sweet Crazy Love. We will confirm this further down the line. But why do her clothes look like Eve's? Well, for one, these scenes parallel each other. In New, Eve danced in white light, on a very high up level. Here, Olivia dances in the dark, in a basement level. This illustrates the dynamic of the girls. Olivia was dropped, perhaps against her own will or judgment, and thus has turned dark. Eve on the other hand was able to maintain her holy image in the beginning because she had choice in exiling herself from Eden and thinking for herself. Whereas Olivia did not necessarily have this choice because she was dropped. We even see Olivia reaching up to the light, the one we saw her looking at from over her shoulder. This perhaps indicates her desire to return to a holy state, restore herself, or return to Eden. She hasn't even bitten her fruit yet in order to reject Eden, yet here she is with an indulged ego, having sinned. We then see Olivia in the basement, and the screen turns red. We see blood drip from the claw, into a sink drain, and then a wolf eye open. This again shows that Olivia's old self was murdered, and perhaps it was by force, not will. Then we see all the Eden girls looking up, their backs turned to us, including Olivia. But after, we see her facing us, looking up. This is the new Olivia. I'd like to talk about what the ego and egotism is. Egoism is just another word for egotism, which is the drive to maintain and enhance favorable views of oneself and having an inflated opinion of one's personal features and importance. BBC defines the ego as a girl who admires someone or envies another, and it can begin with self-loathing or disappointment in oneself. So, if you are an egoist, you prescribe to the notion that you are the most important and must be viewed in the most favorable light. One's moral compass will be directed in the path in which is most beneficial to the egoist, and can become warped entirely in this pursuit. So, okay, Olivia is an egoist. But how does that shape her actions in this music video? Well, if you're an egoist, you tend to focus on just yourself. In relationships, it's hard to trust others, for you can't be sure how they will affect your portrayal and image. Once bitten, twice shy. If she is unsure, Then how could she become confident in her self-image enough in order to knowingly reject Eden and bite her apple? She couldn't. And Eve, who must have realized this, forced Olivia into it. Jinsool opens her rap with the lyrics, "Hey, for the sin of swallowing you." She said something similar in Singing in the Rain. Recall that this alludes to a solar eclipse, when dragons were thought to have swallowed the sun. So, for bringing on the solar eclipse, consequently bringing on the last 6 girls of the Looniverse, Jinsool is thought to have sinned. We know that she has black mixed with her blue in order to create royal blue, so there is a dark, mysterious part to Jinsool we haven't really been able to decipher. Well, let's look at her connections. We see Jinsool pull the earphone out of Olivia's ear, the same thing Olivia did in Sweet Crazy Love. We know that in that video, Jinsool was struggling with her self-identity and place in the Looniverse. We see that she has blood running down her hands, and has killed the beta fish, her representative animal. This is interesting to note because, as we know, Sweet Crazy Love occurred on Earth before the Odd Girls entered the Looniverse. And in Singing in the Rain, we saw that Jinsool, the beta fish, was born again in the Looniverse, spreading her blue color. So then, why did Jinsool kill her beta fish when she was still on Earth? Simple answer. She killed her old self. Jinsool obviously was told something by Olivia on the bus that inspired Jinsool to perhaps think for herself, and to help her decide where she stood in the Looniverse. It isn't until the fish is dead, floating in the bag, that we see Jinsool remove her eye patch and unveil her odd eye to us. She is showing us the new Jinsool, the one with an odd eye who will bring blue to the Looniverse. So now, the cycle continues, just as Jinsool says. I am you, you are me. On and on, you and me, the endless cycle, we can't be separated. Olivia whispers to Jinsool, and Jinsool whispers to Olivia. They are deeply connected, and both inspired each other to purge their own images. What began as a harmful push from Eve can now blossom into a comeback from Olivia, taking reign of herself, who she is, and what she believes. As an egoist like Olivia would believe, she needs to maintain a favorable view of herself, and in order to do that, she has to take her life back into her own hands. The sign behind Jinsool says Fallen Angel, and for good reason. A fallen angel is an angel that was exiled from heaven to earth for disobedience and ungratefulness to God. Fallen angels are also synonymous with demons and the devil, for Satan, who resides in hell, was once an angel as well. Satan desired the power and control that God had over the universe, but ultimately could not achieve that, and was thrown out of holy government. However, Satan is permitted to assign demons to God's people in order to test. Demons tempt, accuse, and deceive, and their goal is to separate as many people from God as possible. And, although they can inspire sin in people, they cannot force a person to do wrong. That is ultimately choice. It is choice that is directed by the moral compass a person holds. So to relate this to Jinsool, she has committed sin in purging her old image. Now, she has been exiled, possibly, from Eden for the choice to love herself and defy her fate. Just as demons do, Jinsool is inspiring sin in Olivia. She does so by whispering in her ear after taking out the earphone. We'll see if Olivia listens. I would also just like to mention the cleverness of BBC here, as they found a cherry can with the sun in the afternoon on the can, relating to Jinsool's lyrics. It is also interesting to note that the cherry is known as the fruit of paradise. And, as I stated in the intro to this video, paradise is another name for the Garden of Eden. So now it makes sense as to how Jinsool would have had knowledge about the cherry in order to give it to Cherry, and why none of the other girls were selected as the messenger. Jinsool knew the power that the cherries held, of course, because, up until that point, she was the only Loona girl to have sinned by purging her old image. Remember? The blood was on her hands.
살려달라고 기도하던 내 꿈들이 세 번의 키스 우리의 약속들이 빛이 되던 날 비로소 알게 된 거야 이제는 너니 나를 좀 더 사랑할 거야 사랑할 거야 한 발 더 다가가 나를 더 안아줄 거야 전부 줄 거야
So Olivia sings, "Put my hands together and ask for your back just once." While doing so, we see a wolf plush being pulled up by a crane, with a red background, and then Olivia overlaid, while looking up. Since the wolf in the claw is covered in red, we can assume it's bloody, like it died. This is referring to the old Olivia that Eve had tempted. This scene is followed by Olivia singing, "My Dream That I Prayed For." When Olivia sings this, she looks down at the bed where she once laid, covered in red feathers, with her face illuminated by red light. So here, she wishes she could go back to her old self just once, perhaps to revisit her dream. Because of the red light on her face, we can tell that she looks back on the past events with resentment and anger. Perhaps Olivia feels that she had been robbed of her dream, and her ability to make a choice as to whether she should indulge in that or not. Next, we finally see Olivia bite into her fruit, the blood plum. BBC specifically gave her a blood plum. Alongside all of the blood imagery, we can safely infer that this was not coincidence on BBC's part. Once she bites it, there is residue on her lips. As she tastes it, the screen turns red, which we see when there is murder or blood. Now, Olivia's ambitions have been renewed with the dark sides of the indulged ego. Anger, resentment, and selfishness. These negative aspects of an egoist will drive her the rest of the course. Olivia sings the lyrics, "The day when our promises became the light." As she does so, we see her again reaching into the light towards where Eve watched her. Only this time the light is now red, signifying Olivia's hatred and growing strength of the dark aspects of herself and her ego. Olivia also sings, "That's when I realized," as she backs away from the edge where she looked down at her old bed and walks into the red room of the blue hallway. As we know, blue represents Jinsul, and we also inferred that Jinsul is the one to urge Olivia to get a grip on herself. This color scheme is not coincidence. There was even blue light on the bowling alley lanes in Nu, connecting Jinsul again to the Eden Girls and Original Sin. After Olivia walks into that room, filled with rage, resentment, and anger, among other dark characteristics of herself, we see flashing images. The claw crane dripping blood, a wolf showing its teeth in red, Olivia showing her teeth, tasting the blood that the blood plum left on her lips. Olivia's eyes, a wolf's eyes in red, Eve letting go of Olivia's hand, and the bed set on fire. Of course, there is an obvious parallel between Olivia and her representative animal, the wolf. We see the same aspects of their faces shown, except the wolves in red. Wolves are animals often associated with negative traits, like greed, anger, loneliness, and evil. They attack sheep and lamb, and tend to prey on inferior members of a group. There is a Cherokee Indian legend between two wolves, which represents the battle between our good and bad thoughts. The one wolf that will win in the end is the one wolf that you feed. The battle of wolves can only be won by conscious decision and choice. If you give in to negative characteristics, then it will lead to further destruction of yourself and your self-image later on. But Olivia has already tasted blood. She has already given in to her negative traits, and, as most humans know, it is hard to come out of that hole. It is hard to foster self-love, positive relationships, and confidence in our decisions and actions if we only nurture our negative traits. I think this is why Olivia's color is gray. She is often seen wearing black and white, which represent the good and the bad, innocent and corrupted, darkness and the light. Gray is a mixture between these two, and these characteristics are perfectly exhibited by Olivia's behavior. Olivia meets herself on the bed, in a pink room, and hugs herself. This is her meeting herself, loving herself. She says that from now on, she'll live without you, she'll move on. she'll say goodbye to her inner demons and focus on her happiness and blessings from now on. Of course, that is idealism. Each person is made up of gray. There are negative traits and positive ones. We will always experience both. It is just up to us and our choices to elect which ones dictate our lives. Here, she'll give herself everything and foster positivity.
수많은 별들 우주 속에서 나를 만난 건 아마 우연이 아냐 운명일 거야 축복일 거야 내게 이제는 너니 나를 좀 더 사랑할 거야 사랑할 거야 한 발 더 다가가 나를 더 안아줄 거야 전부 줄 거야
Olivia sings, "In the space with countless stars, you met me. It must not be coincidence, it must be fate, a blessing for me." At that last statement, the screen turns red, again indicating death of her old self, purge, anger, and resentment. But Olivia is right. In this universe, this LOONAVERSE, it is not a coincidence that she met herself. It is not a coincidence that any of us exist right now. We have meaning. And for Olivia, it is a blessing to her that she's found herself. Through finding herself and indulging in her ego, she can fully experience everything that this world has to offer. Everything begins with loving ourselves. If we can't be confident and sure in ourselves and our identities, and grow with them as they develop and change, then how can we live our beautiful life to the fullest? Olivia comes out of the red room she entered with all of her negative traits, and now has glowing red eyes. Wolves, at night, often do have glowing eyes. This phenomena is caused by a special light-reflecting surface behind their retinas called tapetum lucidum. It helps them see better at night, especially if they need to hunt. Come to think of it, doesn't this hallway resemble the one in Love and Live where Vivi was? We all knew this popular theory was going to come up. Did Olivia kill Vivi, and is that why Heejin made her a cyborg? Well, no. I don't think Olivia killed Vivi. I do think, however, that the old Vivi was killed off, in order for cyborg Vivi to come to. That should be obvious. If we look back at Vivi, she is characterized by her naivety. Just as a deer, she is gentle, unassuming, and naive. So, a girl like that would be a simple target for Eve to try and tempt. Eve literally did this anew, and was successful. The apple before we saw Vivi was always in red, indicating bloodshed, murder, anger, resentment. But it was over the apple of knowledge. If this apple were given to Vivi, of course it would give her knowledge to unlock self-love, but it would also be accompanied by some negative traits. Perhaps, like Olivia, Vivi was pushed by Eve to be exiled from Eden. This would have killed Vivi's old self, and ushered in the new Vivi. Vivi's cassette tape was cracked when Eve held it, indicating corruption. In Egoist, we saw that the cassette tape was in red, meaning that it had been killed off. Another interesting aspect is that, in Everyday I Need You, Jinsul is present. She hadn't even been revealed yet, and wouldn't have been until the 7th reveal. So why would she be with Vivi? It was because they both had been tempted, and killed their old selves off. Vivi literally rescued Jinsul from a basement, to free her, and allow her to kill off the old beta fish, which represents Jinsul's old self. That's why we see Jinsul looking for the beta at the aquarium in Vivi's letter to Hong Kong. Vivi allowed Jinsul to go and make a choice about her fate. To me, it feels like Vivi didn't have that luxury. She was transformed into a cyborg in Love and Live. In the cinema theory up-in-line teaser, Vivi stands in a location that looks similar to Olivia's incineration plant, and the words Love and Live flash across her. We know that BBC had a repackage for 1/3 titled Love and Evil. Love and evil are opposite characteristics, but are both traits present in the self. Just like black and white, light and dark, good and bad, The self has positive and negative traits, as we mentioned. So it is no coincidence that these words flashed across Vivi. That Olivia's hallway looks like the one in Love and Live, and that Vivi was in a place that looked like Olivia's location. It can't even be a coincidence that, in the same teaser, Jinsul is in an all-blue room, with a random red light next to her, like the one in Egoist. Wearing clothes that look like the ones she wore in Egoist as well. So, no, I don't believe that Olivia killed Vivi. The one that does most of the temptation here is Eve, as she is the main antagonist for Vivi, Jinsul, and Olivia, among others. Anyways, we see Olivia lick blood as she is dropped by Eve onto the ground, just like the motifs we saw early on in the music video. Next, we see Eve drop the wolf plush, finally, as Olivia is on the roof. Did you notice that, as the wolf plush was raised by the claw, Olivia kept ascending? And now, since Olivia has finally reached the top, Eve is going to drop her far enough in order to purge Olivia's old image. This is true as the wolf plush is in red. We then see blood drip from the claw, and then down the sink. As well as Olivia now laying in the red feathers. We even see Eve looking in on the crane machine, as Olivia holds a lighter. This is further proof that Eve dropped Olivia. Alright, it was a quick flash at the beginning, but this is the best scene in the entire music video. Someone is washing their hands in the same sink we saw blood drip into from the crane. This leads me to assume that it is Eve washing her hands. Washing away the sins she's just committed, and clearing away any evidence of the crime. That's interesting, as we made note of Jinsul's hands in Sweet Crazy Love, and how the blood was on her hands. The saying, "the blood is on your hands," or that you've been caught red-handed, actually originate from Shakespeare's play Macbeth. I'll call it the Scottish play to avoid bad omens. In Act 2 Scene 2, lines 57 to 60, Macbeth says, "Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand? No, this my hand will weather the multitudinous seas in Arnadine, making the green one red." In modern text, he says, "Could all the ocean's waters wash this blood from my hands? No, instead my hands will turn the seas to red, turning the green waters red." After this, Lady Macbeth says, "My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white." In modern text, she says, "My hands are as red as yours, but I would be ashamed if my heart were as pale and weak." Lady Macbeth's allusion to cowardice within a white heart actually related to Chu's heart attack lyrics, when she says, "Dipped you inside my white heart, and made it red." This alludes to Eve giving Chu strength, and Chu condoning all that Eve does, for she loves Eve. Anyways, if you have never read or watched the Scottish play, I'll give you a brief synopsis. Macbeth was a war hero, and recently had defeated the Irish army. He was told by witches that he will be king. In order to take the throne, Macbeth contemplates murdering King Duncan. Macbeth tells his wife his prophecy, and she urges him to go through with it. King Duncan stays at Macbeth's castle, and Macbeth is growing worried. He sees a floating dagger in front of him, a hallucination, and decides to go ahead with it. Macbeth kills the king, and has 2 bloody daggers. Lady Macbeth tells Macbeth to wash his hands clean, and that she will take the bloody daggers and frame the servants. Macbeth says he will never get his hands clean, but Lady Macbeth insists. After this, he becomes king, and like every other Shakespearean play, faces a great paradox and tragedy at the end that bests him due to his poor choices. Not only does the Scottish play give birth to the red-handed sayings, but it tackles many questions about fate, choice, and the self, especially within predestination. Are we predestined to go to heaven or hell, or do we have free will to choose our eternal fates? Is our future fated or shaped by our free will? These are questions the Eden girls face and ask themselves. But to relate these questions to Macbeth, we have to go to the beginning, the part when the witches tell Macbeth he will become king. They planted that idea into his head, but had they not told him, would he have even considered murdering King Duncan? If he ignored the witch's prophecy, would he have averted his cruel and twisted fate? In Shakespearean England, kings were thought to have been ordained by God in order to rule. So Macbeth had the choice between eternal damnation and a gamble of morals, or seizing the throne that he was destined to. This choice between what you should do and what you want to do is difficult, just as the choice Adam and Eve had to obey God or to bite the apple of knowledge and be exiled to earth and atone for their sins. Though Macbeth had choices, he fulfilled every prophecy that the witches made about him. So the question begs, are we commanding our fate through egotistical choices we make, or are we just fulfilling a destiny that was designed for us to do so? Macbeth cannot resist his ambition in fulfilling the prophecy and sees the floating dagger in the air, a hallucination. When Macbeth sees it, it legitimizes his choice. Just as when Eve sees the apple and gains a strong self-image and confidence, she wants the others to experience it too. When she bites the apple, it legitimizes her choice in being exiled from Eden and disobeying God. When Macbeth sees the dagger, it urges him to go through with a murder that Macbeth both desires and is conflicted by, as he knows murder is wrong. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. So similarly, when Eve drops Olivia, it seemed justified to Eve. Eve has already sinned, so her moral compass may be shifting. To urge someone else to purge their old self, and to be exiled from Eden too, feels like the right thing to do. It's Eve's own conscious choices that lead her to these actions. But doesn't it seem like it's Eve's fate and destiny to fulfill all of these choices in rejecting Eden? There's some food for thought. Crazy how I alluded Shakespearean symbolism to Eve from just washing her hands, huh? Anyways, we still have fire symbolism to cover. We see Olivia, after having committed to herself on her own accord, hold a lighter. So she is the one to light them. The baby swan, cassette, YY uniform, and the bed are all on fire. These are all objects that relate to girls and their image. Fire can represent a lot of things, but in this context, I believe it to be punishment. Fire is synonymous with hell, and it is known in the Bible as being punishment for sinning. So it really is no coincidence that all of the objects that are aflame are ones linked to Eve especially, among others. The baby swan was Eve's old image, the cassette was a tool Eve used to corrupt Vivi, the uniform is worn by all those who have sinned. The cassette also represents Vivi in general, alluding to the fact that she had unwillingly sinned when she was tempted by Eve. The uniform is also worn by all of the girls who began to think for themselves and inflate their egos. They have sinned especially. The cherries aren't on fire, but they are knocked over. Jinsul has sinned as well, as we've established, and the bed is the place where Olivia laid. Olivia, having chose to begin to love herself, has sinned. She disobeyed God. Now it's time for her to light up all that needs to be purged in order for her to carry on within her new self-image and self-love. Finally, after almost 2 years of waiting, lore analysis and guesses, and mind-numbing impatience, the first girl meets the last. We know that the 1/3 girls reside on Earth, or their plane of the Loonaverse. So Olivia must have committed to being exiled from Eden yet. The parallel in this frame is amazing. Olivia is seen with red light, indicating anger, blood, danger, and hell, which is associated with sin. Hijin, on the other hand, is seen in blue light, representing sincerity, trust, wisdom, and especially heaven and heaven-like qualities. Finally, though, the first girl was able to find the last. Remember how in Vivid someone caught Hijin's eye from outside the window? It looked a lot like a dark shadow. We then see the similar motif in Sweet Crazy Love, and we know that Olivia was the only other girl present in Sweet Crazy Love. Thus, this alludes to the fact that Olivia was the shadow in front of the window. Olivia's teaser images even further support this notion. as most of them were taken in front of a window, in clothing that closely resembles pieces that we would see in 1/3, not the YY by Y girls. Plus, almost all of the teasers are similar to the music video. Olivia's teaser images don't even correlate to the aesthetics of Egoist. And now that Heejin has caught up to this last girl, we can see the properties of the continuous Mobius loop that the girls live on. The moon waxes and wanes, the sun rises and sets, the girls keep on walking. The LOONAVERSE is now complete.